personally dislike homosexuals?
Of course, they are disgusting. What sort of people are they?
That was the president of Uganda in 2014. That was the day after he signed into law a really radical piece of legislation. It was referred to worldwide as the Kill the Gays bill, because the original version of that law called just for that, called for executing people for the grave crime of being gay. Now, if you've been watching this show from the beginning, you might remember that we covered the fight over that law extensively at the time, not just because it was so extreme, but also because there was a big American connection to it. Some of the architects of that bill were Americans, radical, anti-gay, evangelical activists and preachers who went to Uganda to sell what they couldn't get done here in this country to a different country where they thought they could get away with it. These groups carried on a multi-year campaign to get radical anti-gay legislation passed in Uganda. And they succeeded. In 2014, the Kill the Gays law was signed into law in Uganda. And what happened next was interesting. It was not just the expected legal challenges within that country. We also saw a very strong stand from the Obama White House at the time. This was from the Obama administration's press release at the time. Quote, "We want human rights abusers worldwide to know their misdeeds are not unnoticed, and would-be human rights abusers to understand that there are consequences for engaging in such actions. The State Department is therefore taking steps to restrict the entry into the United States of specific Ugandan individuals involved in serious violations or abuses of human rights, including those determined to have committed such violations or abuses against LGBT individuals." That was the Obama administration in 2014. The Obama administration also pushed that country in other really specific ways. They canceled joint military exercises that the U.S. had planned with Uganda. The Obama administration pulled millions of dollars that had been planned to be given to that country in support of their country's policing. The U.S. at the time had planned to open a national public health institute in Uganda. Instead, the Obama administration withdrew the millions of dollars it had planned for that endeavor and moved the entire institute to another country instead. The Obama White House used all these powers at its disposal. And it seems to have made a difference. I mean, those efforts were not the only reason that Uganda's anti-gay law fell apart in 2014, but it fell apart. The law was challenged in court there in Uganda by human rights activists and civil rights groups, by MPs and academics and journalists. It was eventually struck down by Ugandan courts on technical grounds. But the big shove on this issue from the United States, by all accounts, made a difference.
That was Rachel Maddow on MSNBC. Rachel is a very liberal person. And Rachel had beef with the Christian group in the United States because Christians are, they're clashing with the woke culture because, of course, if you read the Bible, it says that a nuclear family is what it's about. But Rachel Maddow, who's super intelligent, she articulates well, and she went to the best schools in the United States. Rachel is saying, let's go away from truth and let's create our own reality. And so Rachel helps to give birth to the LGBTQ society. So if you are woke, then you are progressive. If you are anti-woke, then you are not progressive. That's what Rachel would like to think. Rachel Maddow is having a meltdown on what is real versus what is fake in our heads. Rachel, we create our own reality in the woke culture. But what I do not like, what Rachel Maddow is saying on her meltdown, are that Christians are radical and that Christians could not change the dynamic of the United States in terms of the nuclear family. So Christians went over to Uganda and changed this radical law. And all of that is not real. All of that is not real. Christians are not radical people. Christians are real people that want truth. That's the difference with Rachel Maddow meltdown on MSNBC versus a Christian reality. So Rachel, people didn't take you on for years because you were safe on MSNBC. But girl, internet is here now, and we are going to reveal to people that you, Rachel Maddow, are the real radical lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender Q society. You represent the radicalness of it, okay? And if you think Rachel is radical, listen to what CNN has to say about men today. You've got to hear this one. Men are remaining single because of the internet. Think Pornhub. We'll be back to tell you 3 ways that you need to get out of your single life and go into a relationship. I'm Tisha Paul. Folks, go ahead and do us a favor and hit that free like and that free subscribe button. That way we'll bring you the latest breaking business news from the United States. And folks, check out the Tag products, courtesy of Neiman Marcus. It can be shipped anywhere in the world. Remember, today you no longer have to shop physically at a store. We're now shopping on the internet, and you can get stuff to you. We'll be back after CNN tell you why men today are single, and it has to do with porn.
Last week, I delved here into recent data from the CDC suggesting major problems with regard to the mental health of our adolescents, surges in depression and suicidal ideation, especially true for our girls. This week, I found cause to worry about young men. This headline from The Hill, it caught my eye. Most young men are single. Most young women are not. The story reported that as of 2022, Pew Research Center found 30% of U.S. adults are neither married, living with a partner, nor engaged in a committed relationship. Nearly half of all young adults are single. Now, look at these numbers. 34% of women, twice as many, a whopping 63% of men. What explains that? I pulled the Pew study and I read with interest. Turns out since 2019, the share of single men who say they're looking for dates or a relationship has declined from 61% to 50%. In 2018, 28% of men ages 18 to 30 reported they'd had no sex in the past year, compared with 18% of women of that age. The Hill report said men in their 20s are more likely than women in their 20s to be romantically uninvolved, sexually dormant, friendless, and lonely. They stand at the vanguard of an epidemic of declining marriage, sexuality, and relationships that afflicts all of young America. Among the causes, among the factors, a reliance on social media and online porn. But also, more young women are hooking up with each other or dating and marrying slightly older men, and heterosexual women are getting more choosy. Other troubling statistics about men come from a 2021 study from the Survey Center for American Life. They found the share of men who have 6 or more close friends, which in 1990 was 55%, by 2021 had shrunk by half. Meanwhile, those with literally 0 close friends, which stood at 3% in 1990, has zoomed to 15%. An expert quoted by The Hill said this disconnect can have catastrophic consequences for young men. Quote, in the worst case scenario, the young American man's social disconnect can have tragic consequences. Young men commit suicide at 4 times the rate of young women. Younger women are largely responsible for rising rates of mass shootings, a trend that some researchers link to their growing social isolation. Well, those words reminded me of a conversation that I had over a year ago right here on CNN with NYU professor Scott Galloway.
But the issue is, when you have a group of men, the lower half of attractiveness of men, and online dating, which has doubled, now it's about half of relationships.
That was a CNN special, and I wanted to put it on because I know as a YouTuber that I'm seeing a lot of men today that are single. And yes, even though you have access to porn, it has a downside. It's trying to keep you single. Singleness is not good. 3 things that will happen if you are single forever. First of all, you will not be able to have a family, and that's not going to bring balance to your life. Number 2, you will have depression. And number 3, you'll experience loneliness. We were never designed to experience loneliness. No man is an island. Young men, find yourself a girlfriend and eventually a wife. Porn cannot satisfy you. It isn't real. Every day it's going to be a bigger, better porn, bigger, better porn. But you are given into an addiction, and an addiction is going to drive you crazy. Young men, I'm talking to you. Go ahead and experience real life. Come off the internet and go and have a real date. Women are capable of talking to men. You need to exchange something, some form of realness, and you'll never get that from porn. Porn will never, ever fulfill that realness. And that's the problem, young people. When you watch that many porn, how are you going to know what's reality from what's fantasy? CNN is a liberal channel, and CNN is saying that our young generation, the men today, are being single. They're being hooked by dating on the internet and hooked by porn. And these things are not supposed to happen. A man and a woman are supposed to be together, and you're supposed to be trying to have a relationship. So you want to back off the addiction of porn, and you want to go out, especially on weekends. And